Welcome and good evening to the City of Shakopee City Council meeting for July 12th, 2022. We're sitting in a joint workshop session later with the Scott County Board of Commissioners. But we'll start off here, item number 1, if we could call the roll.
Councilor Brennan,
Here.
Councilor Lehman,
Present.
Councilor Whiting,
Here.
Councilor Contreras.
Here.
Mayor Mars.
Here, thank you very much. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Let's move ahead to item number 3, the approval of the City of Shakopee City Council agenda for tonight. Are there any changes, corrections, Mr. Reynolds?
No, sir.
Councilor Lehman?
Move to approve the agenda.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as stated. Any further discussion? Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. The agenda has been approved. Moving ahead to the item number 4, the consent agenda, of which there's 2 items. Any changes, corrections, Mr. Reynolds?
No, sir.
Councilor Whiting?
Motion to approve the consent as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Councilor Brennan. Councilor Lehman?
Mayor, there are just 2 items. It's public hearing notification, and are they both July 7th? Is that what I read?
I think so.
I know the first one's in July. Is the second one the same date? Does anybody know?
It's July 7th.
Thank.
July 19th.
Okay. Very good, thank you.
Very good. I had a motion for the consent agenda in a second. If there's no other discussion, before we vote, we would read the consent agenda into the public record. Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and esteemed members of the county board. These are the agenda items for tonight's meeting. 4A1 is adopt resolution R 2022-084, which sets a public hearing date for a vacation of easements in the Hinches Industrial Park 2nd Edition. And 4A2, which adopts resolution 2022-086, which sets a public hearing date for a vacation of easements in Windmere South 5th Edition.
All right, thank you. Again, we have a motion and a second for the approval of the consent agenda as stated. It has been read into the public record. There would be no further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Now we would move on to general business and our administrative A1 review of our city-county partnership, and not sure who's going to lead.
He just put a bite in his mouth.
So the setup.
Mr. Mayor, I was under the impression you were going to adjourn the meeting and then we go to a workshop setting. Because you're on official business right now, aren't you?
Yes.
We traditionally do workshops as official business.
We do, okay, all right.
So we would, as part of our regular meeting, have the workshop within it, and then once we conclude, then we would move to adjourn our city council meeting to the 19th.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
let's go ahead then and move to a workshop setting that we're all accustomed to. Tracy, is this good? Am I good?
Yes, thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Apparently there weren't quite enough microphones to go around, so I have to wear this mic, so. Get the rest of the lettuce out of my teeth. That was a good timing on that. This is something we probably should have done. This is my 8th year as a county board member representing the bulk of the city of Shakopee, and I gotta apologize that it's just never occurred to me to have a joint meeting with my own city council. I always enjoy coming down to see you from time to time, but you know, as some of you that I've had for lunch or coffee know, I think my best work is done with coffee and donuts, or in this case, a salad and a soda. And there's something just personable about breaking bread with each other. even when we have differences, and we can talk things through and kind of come to a consensus, or at least agree to disagree agreeably if we need to do that. So thank you for joining us for dinner tonight. Please feel free to munch away while we're talking here. That won't be considered impolite at all, because this is, after all, a working workshop at dinner, and I will not be munching while I'm running the meeting, but that would just be a bit much. But along the way to things, with our largest city in Shakopee, and of course the county seat, and the sort of the engine that drives the tax base and the activity in the larger part of Scott County, it's important, I think, that we as a county board just have a get-together like this with you from time to time. And you know, I'm not running again for election, but I will ask my colleagues that are running for reelection, and you folks, that do this at least once a year going forward, okay? And again, my apologies that it's taken 8 years for this to dawn on me as a good idea, that we get together and do these things. But once a year, I'll be around to pester you for that, and just to remind you, even if I have to buy the lunch, don't write that down, by the way.
Buy the lunch.
So there's a couple things, though, that have been kind of just out there, just kind of bubbling around, that I think we just need to talk through together as policymakers. We've had our staff working on things, and our staff does a great job. But every once in a while, we need, those of us with election certificates need to talk to each other. We need to hear what the other folks are thinking, why you're thinking it, and if there's some way we can come to any kind of consensus or agreement or not. So the first one we'll talk about is, in my opinion, the one that I've heard the most about with the most heartburn, is the library partnership agreement. And I'm thinking how we set this up, because there have been some back and forth between staff, and some of us have heard about these things. But I have here a memorandum from Leslie regarding this. Leslie, do you want to start with this, or do we want Mr. Reynolds? You know what? This is a workshop. I'm going to call you all by your first names. Unless we get out of hand, then I'll go to commissioner or counselor. So if you hear me call you Mayor Mars, that means I think we're out of hand, okay, Bill? All right. Good deal. Leslie, do you want Bill to take the lead on this? Bill Reynolds, or do you want to start with this, or do you want me just to kind of wade into it here?
Well, I think that the plan was for you, we had, you know, I can certainly give some of the background, Commissioner,
From our perspective,
from
yeah.
our perspective,
certainly.
right? You know, this partnership has been in play for a long time, 1977, actually before that, if you go back. I think when we started utilizing the conference room for the Resource Center about 10 hours a week last August, so we had advertised it and talked about it. But when we brought back the potential of looking at expanding, when Jake reached out to see some modifications to the periodical room, we had a couple meetings after that and decided to continue to have the county manage the use of that facility, but we needed to have more discussion, and certainly needed to address the city council if there was anything regarding expansion or modifications to the library. We met a couple times on that. I think we even met as elected officials and staff a couple times on the issue. The city did forward us an agreement earlier this year, a license agreement. The county board talked about that at a work session and did not feel that a license agreement was the appropriate type of agreement to put into play for this long-term partnership. And thus the extension of the invitation to come and talk about it, council the board tonight. And so that is why we're here. We did provide the board, and I certainly could provide the council. You know, we have the existing agreement, which you've seen. You've obviously all seen the city's license agreement that was prepared by the city. County did have the county attorney put together what we call a partnership, a joint powers partnership agreement that replicated a lot of the current agreement, but would update some of the terms and the style, and then would actually turn the operation of the conference room over to the city. They preferred that so that we don't get engaged or involved with not having the types of activities at least the current city council would like to see in that conference room. So we have you know, that type of a proposal to talk about. But I think it's more important, as you and I talked, Mike, that
Yeah.
you folks have a discussion tonight about the concerns, and then we can put together from that the right type.
That strikes me as the best place to start, because I know we've done technical work and people with degrees higher than mine have drafted proposals and counter proposals. But just as a commissioner and a citizen, some of the thing, I want to tell you that I've heard it this way, that some members of the council have been concerned about some of the activities that the county has been doing at the library. Excuse me. And so I'm thinking there's something else is driving this issue besides a 40-year-old agreement. That, you know, we've had, anybody can go in and reserve that room with the librarian. I've done it myself when I was a state rep. That little room on a Saturday morning, and 20 or 30 people show up to tell you what they think about stuff, and anybody can do that. But apparently our staff was running something called the Family Resource Council. And because we have so many citizens, 100 and some thousand a year through there, we just thought that would be a good place to do that. Stop me if I'm missing something here, but I think I'm stating it correctly. So that's been going on. Now, I'm a roads and bridges guy. I'm not necessarily an HHS guy, Health and Human Services. So I'm not paying a lot of attention to what's going on there, like, say, Barb would be. But apparently that became a sticking point. Am I surmising that correctly? Or somebody tell me what the issue seemed to be. Sure, Jay, please.
I think it's just a little bit miscategorized a little
Okay.
bit. Because I'll speak for myself, but I think I can speak for the council by saying it's the programs themselves are not the issue. The programs are great. They serve the community well. It's where they're stationed. I mean, it's a library. That's my opinion. Matt, do you want to?
Well, is this a mic right
Yeah,
here?
that one. If you guys could speak to the green light there, that'd be great.
All right. Well, I look at it two different perspectives. One is, you know, we built this building for a library purpose only. That's basically what it was at the beginning, as was the old building prior to that building. The only reason the city upgraded it was the old building was old, it was small, Shakopee and the county were growing, and that was part of our responsibility under the old agreement. But from a different perspective, and I totally agree, you know, the city should not be in the business of supplying the human services aspect. That's the county's function under the state.
Yeah.
But from another perspective, you know, you're talking 120,000 people going through this. The totality of Shakopee is 40,000. So we've got 1/3 if every man, woman, and child use this service, which isn't happening. So 3/4 of your services would be coming from outside of the city, yet the city is the largest financial payer into what the county does. We're the largest taxpayer in Scott County.
Matt, just one
Let me
second.
finish my thought, please.
Okay, sure.
And on top of that, we also have the cost of the building, the upkeep of the building, and that part of it, on top of the financial tax dollars that go into the county from Shakopee at totality. So really, from my perspective, we have two different things going on here. I still believe the county should just buy that building and take it over completely. We're past the old school days of a little library, one librarian, one person putting the Dewey Decimal System back together. And then you do whatever you want in your building. I'm concerned it opens up Pandora's box for any other city-owned property to become a wing of the county government's social services. And I think that opens a whole lot of issues. So that's the way I'm looking at it from my perspective. And it's not the services that you're supplying, it's the location and the amount of financial burden on the general taxpayers of Shakopee at that location.
If I could comment just on one part of your statement.
Sure.
You go in that library 4 times, you're 4, not 1.
If I do what?
You go in the library 4 times, you're 4, not 1 person.
Right?
Visits. So when you said only 40,000 people, that's our population. 80,000 are kind of coming for somewhere else. No. You're 40,000. If they go in there say they went in there 10 times each, that's 400,000. That's how the number is calculated. It's the total traffic.
Even if we use,
Library, what's the percentage of people coming in the library from Shakopee?
even if we use that scenario, it doesn't change my opinion, because we also pay the largest amount of tax dollars toward this building, which supplies a lot of the services.
Yeah. Well, we're kind of, we've heard your concerns long before this, and, if there was ever an item that could really be quick work of, is the agreement, the final agreement that we have in our packet here basically says it'll operate strictly as a library, and the conference room will be totally under your control. And we're not, in the Family Resource Center is gonna be at the Marshall Transit Station. So all concerns, all issues seem to be solved there, to me.
Could be, I've never seen this agreement, so.
We'll get to that in a moment, but yeah, the idea of 100 and some thousand people visiting was completely separate from your concern about social services in the library. That was the only, John made the point rather well, that's visits, and many people are repeat visitors because we have a lot of folks that use the library several times a week. So, Barb, you wanted to.
Oh, just a few things. I think we're just kind of getting information and concerns on
Sure.
the table. So, so a few things. I'm kind of excited because I think all of us around the table and all of us in the room have learned more about our libraries and what our libraries do throughout this whole process, and even some of the maybe chatter or press has got some more people to look at things and either appreciate the library, think about government services, that kind of thing. Just again, this is just a statement to remind everybody that in Scott County, in all the other suburban counties and many counties in Minnesota, there is this kind of partnership between the cities and counties. Counties aren't mandated to provide library services. I hate to say that because my board likes to get rid of anything that's not mandated, and I really believe in libraries. But we're not mandated to provide them. We think it's a good service. I think our residents and overwhelmingly everything I've heard since this discussion happened is that people appreciate the libraries. We have this same kind of partnership with the other cities. I think, speaking for me and some of our discussion in our workshop, we're not at a place where we're going to go buy all 7 buildings and change that whole structure, a structure that works well. And that I just want to also remind all of us that, yes, the Family Resource Center is operating, and our brainstorm of an idea of how to expand those was the reason we went to City Council and we said, hey, we have this idea, what do you think? It was at the very beginning stages. But I think then it got blended together with just the county's policy about when a nonprofit calls and wants to use the room, we let them use the room, And so there were some things happening in that room that were attributed to county provided services when they were just really a nonprofit who called and reserved the room. And I think, from my perspective, probably good we're not putting in our staff a position to say, do you think Mike Beard can use the room? Do you think, Eric Pratt can use the room? Do you think this place to be able to use the room? No, if it was a nonprofit or a citizen, we let them use the room. So, for example, the dental services that I think created a little bit of uproar, that was a nonprofit that called to us to use the room. Since then, I've looked all around the county. They're at Jordan Community Center. They're just at different public buildings.
The dentist guy. The dentist is at all these different places?
Yeah, they're just a nonprofit group that rents the room.
Right.
And then third, I did pay taxes as a Shakopee taxpayer for a lot of years. And yes, a lot of revenue comes in, but I think we've all talked about and looked at also the expenses. And that was one of the whole points of the Family Resource Center, seeing that in the Shakopee area, a lot of tax is collected, were being paid out disproportionately to Shakopee residents and having troubles, having a lot of troubles. And that was why we started Family Resource Centers, to try and work with families early so they, first of all, hopefully children would be saved and families would be saved, but also that we'd be spending less county tax dollars on those things. So I think when we start talking about who pays the most, we also, if we're going to get into that discussion, we have to talk about who costs the most too. Otherwise, it's not a full discussion. And we could get all those numbers, but I don't think that's the subject.
That's not the point.
We're doing here.
Right.
So just wanted to kind of just background information for us to think about as we work through this.
Speaking of the background information, I don't know if Chris is here, maybe Barb. The Family Resource Center concept is only a couple years old, isn't it?
So we are one of the, I think, innovators in this. It's a national trend to try to have better community engagement and better access to resources. It's not necessarily the work performed at the resource center, but it's providing information, it's making connections, it's a source of information for people. Sometimes there's services provided there, right? Somebody might come for a dad and tot clinic, or we might have the giveaway for the readers where we're working on early literacy, or, you know, public health might have somebody come in and they could interview them for something and try to connect them to services, but it's usually the connection of it.
And that was my point, I think, where I think I was going, but I'm doing something politicians shouldn't do. I'm asking a question I don't know the answer to. And that's it seems that then this has all popped up on my radar, but remember, I'm the roads and bridges guy. Over the last couple of years.
It's new.
It's new, kind of about the same time COVID hit. We were trying to get people out of this building because they used to all come here for every, you know, if they needed a housing voucher or they needed this, that, or the other thing, they came here and went to third floor to see somebody, which was unwieldy, not an effective use of their time or our time. And so somebody at HHS division come up with the idea that if we took the people out of the third floor to the different cities around the state, the county, 8 of them, the people could come to those and have like a one-stop shop if they wanted to sign up for some benefits or some help. Am I missing something, or was that kind of how it unfolded,
Yeah,
Barb?
a little bit different, because our thought is the Family Resource Centers should make people never have to get to the point that they're going to the third floor using those government services. So
Okay.
a whole different thing. And that's why we thought it fit
Coming
into
back to what
libraries
we-
when we looked
yeah,
at the
okay.
mission of libraries is to connect people to services. So again, I don't have an end game here, but I just want to say it really wasn't about the programs we have to provide, trying to peddle those or market those.
Yeah.
It was about how can we keep people from needing those services we have to provide. So
Kind of had them off in the first place, okay.
yeah,
I
that's
think
really the goal.
The important part of the discussion is to help us understand how we came to something called an FRC and why we put it in each city in the libraries, because I don't think we have any in the townships, but each of the 8 cities or 7 cities at
So
the time.
we actually have 3 of them right now. We're having the 4th discussion with the city of Savage at
Okay.
the library.
Well, there, I stand corrected.
If I can jump in, you guys have
Please.
a great conversation about that. And you've touched on it, and I want to relay a little story. I don't want to take a lot of time here, but my driver's license expired. I had to come down to services. Well, I hadn't got my new license in a few years, so I came right in thinking I could walk up to the counter. No, you can't do that anymore.
Welcome
You gotta
to
get
the
an
new way.
appointment. There's glass windows, everything, people block, you know, it's all secure. If I had a question about services, I wouldn't want to come here either. So to me, it's a customer service issue. If you want people to avoid your services, you know, then you have to, first of all, introduce them to the services so that you can teach them to avoid it, I guess, but or learn what their issues are. But if you're stopping them because your customer service is at a point where people don't want to come in here, it's too rigid, it's too governmental, it's too, you know, formed like that, and you want to go to the library, then to me, you're asking the wrong questions. To me, it says, maybe we got to look at this as a customer service issue, and how do we make people more comfortable coming to the county building? Or we got an empty county, a school building, not far, that's fairly empty. See, in my mind, the county is human services. That's a big aspect of what you do. A library, to me, that's better related maybe to schools. It's education, it's reading levels, it's you know, trying to get the computer access. You go up into our library currently, there's a bank of computers, full. So that means somebody's being turned away in my mind. Why don't we expand more computer access? We're getting away from books. There's kids out there without computers, without computer access if they're all full. To me, that would be better use of the library, trying to get reading scores up, trying to get, you know, and we do a lot of this already, but more learning programs. I see this as a customer service issue, and the FRC could be made in another place, like you said, the transit building.
Don't really,
More fun, right?
don't really even know.
But looking at it as an aspect from a library, why not push back and try to make more of an education experience at the library, reading levels, computer access, things like that.
Just on the customer service, I can say one thing. I'll just tell you my personal experience. I have a driver's license, not non-county one, kitty corner from basically where I live. You show up there at about 8:15, 8:30, you can easily wait 2 hours to get served. Now, same thing in the past, you could show up at the household hazardous waste and also sit in a long line and wait. I called, made an appointment, didn't wait 1 minute when I brought stuff to household hazardous waste. Actually being able to make an appointment, being sure that when you go into the building, you're gonna get served right away is the ultimate in customer service.
How much is your customer service, your turnaround time, has that slowed down quite a bit, or have you looked at that data?
I don't know the current data.
We've done this.
Can we reverse that? Make an appointment for when I pay my taxes. I'll just let you know when I'm available.
Send a runner over to pick up the
Right.
check.
I'll let you know when my schedule.
Councilmember Whiting, the one comment on the customer service, and I just followed the comment in the newspaper, it wasn't about customer service. There are people that have had negative impacts in court, or they've been in child protection, or they have had to testify under, it's really hard for those people to come back to the courthouse when you talk to them. It's not the customer service, it's not the people they're dealing with, it's negative experiences they've gone through in the Justice Center, where they were abused and had to testify, or they've had some of these things in their life. And so when you talk to those folks, or when you do research on family resource centers, finding places like libraries, which are normally welcoming places where most people, as you've talked about, feel comfortable, it's one of the reasons those tend to be successful in those types of an environment.
My point is, maybe look at inside, you just did a big expansion of this building, maybe adding another
And-
entryway.
Frankly, part of what we did at the courthouse was while this building was basically destroyed inside and everything was being completely rebuilt, we had to jiggle people around, and that's when customer service really had to go to kind of like wartime footing, so to speak, because the building was gutted while we were building the new one. So there was some, not only did the COVID thing hit, the construction and reconstruction hit at the same time. There were some extenuating circumstances kind of driving
I
this whole
think the
bus.
DMV is a really bad example to use. The reason I think that is
Yeah.
because we all know the Minlars thing was a disaster.
You know?
So whatever county that you happen to be in and going getting DMV services, you're just kind of screwed anyway.
Bill,
And
all
it's not the county's fault, it's the state's Minlars' fault on that. You know,
Perhaps
and
more about
even
that
when they
in just a
fix
moment.
that, even when they tried to fix that now with the new software, now the next problem is you have state authorized DMV locations, whether it's a standalone place or at a county facility. Now your frontline people, your customer service people are at the whim of the program that they're using. And my understanding is not enough resources from the state to provide the service they want you to provide, DMV portion. So there's a lot more to that mess than it's not necessarily the county or the stand-up provider's fault.
Just, oh, by the way, DMV is not one of our required services. We provide that as actually a taxpayer cost, as a convenience. Bill?
Just trying to bring it back around again strictly to the library, and Council
Yeah.
Brennan had some comments, and trying to get around to the table here as we can all talk, and then try to hone in on our things that we can do together.
For me, I'm not really sure. It sounds like there was another plan that's already been developed that may be not communicated to the city council. I've heard rumors of it, but I don't know where you're at on it. And I think the fact that we submitted a contract or a agreement, but we haven't heard back from that on that either, is really maybe the cause of some concerns with everybody.
Yeah.
So I don't know, is the FRC going to a different location? Is that a decision that's been made? And do we need to have a conversation regarding the use of the library in the future as the building itself instead of?
Jody, thank you. Let's lay the FRC thing to rest right now. Have we made the decision? The board chair is asking. Have we made the decision that we're actually gonna remodel and relocate to the transit station up in Marshall?
We've been exploring that, we've been working on that.
I know
in
we've been
direction
working on
this-
exploring
I
it.
think one of the commissioners still believes the library is a better location.
No, he's from Prior Lake.
No, I want to go on record saying, we are looking at the Marshall Road Transit Center.
Yeah.
I think it's a mistake. But I'm looking kitty corner. I've been sort of, what's the word? Sort of comforted that maybe it will work, but everything comes down to location to me. In Health and Human Services, where's Pam? Is she?
Barb's here.
You're like, it gives me hives. Like, I love the city that doesn't, you don't have to deal with that, but that's part of what we do, and we're all in it together. I'll talk into this mic there. That's not gonna squirt me, is it? No,
That's a
I
different
am
one.
still hopeful that there is something, part of this conversation, that we can figure out a way for it to work in the library. Because I do believe, sure, Shakopee, powerhouse, economic engine, no dispute. Conversely, biggest expenses as well. Just is what it is. Favorite expression. I am still hopeful that, I do believe that FRC, Family Resource Center, Council, whatever you want to call it, center, while it being new-ish, it has a track record, a demonstrated track record of saving money. And I'd love to shave some things that we don't have to do to get that levy down. And maybe coming into this, not this meeting, but I thought, libraries, customer service, do we really? But libraries have morphed. They're not Dewey Decimal anymore. They probably still are, but there's a lot of things that the library gives and affords people. And one of them, I think, is access, because it's a sort of neutral, easy place to get to. It's, there's no issues. And so it does allow people, I'm still hopeful that it still allows people to get to these FRCs, get some things to help with whatever it might, maybe it's a reader, maybe it's the reading levels, which impacts everything. And they don't need to come here and cost more money. Shakopeans more money. Prior Lakes people more, Scott County folks. The idea is to save money and to help people along the way. I feel, sure, there's busing, sort of. It is a bus terminal at the Marshall Road Transit Center. But if I'm living at, take your pick, anywhere that's not on a bus route, the reality is, I just think that's a barrier. I'm not going to Marshall Road Transit Center. I can get to the library, I can walk there, I can get there. I just think that's a better location, and I'm hopeful that we can get there, because I do believe this, and this goes for all of us, but certainly Shakopee, because you're the biggest. To whom much is given, much is required. I think there's something to that. And so I am hopeful. I'm a hopeful guy, so I'm hopeful that we don't just say we're doing the MERS. I know we're looking into that. We're doing our due diligence, which makes sense. But part of this is having a conversation and say, the bigger picture, I think the bigger picture is that we are all in this thing together. That we are all trying to save taxpayers' money, not just Scott County taxpayers that happen to live in Shakopee. It's the same pool, right? It's the same pool. You're getting your city, it's the same people. So I don't really differentiate that county taxpayers, city, we're just trying to save money and help people out along the way. And hopefully, in so doing, break some generational, I'm gonna call it sin, that has been pervasive in these families. Some of them, not all of them. And to make a difference, so that we're not having these conversations down the road. So I'm hoping to leave this place better.
You said MERS, you mean Marshall Road Transit Station is what MERS
Yes,
stands for.
Marshall Road Transit Center.
Thank you, David. Jody?
I think libraries have only morphed. But it's my understanding that you're not using the librarian or other library staff to manage the FRC. It's another organization or staff members that are coming in to manage it. So it's not really a library that's morphing, it's a location issue. And, you know, we just had that new pedestrian bridge built on 169 so that people can easily walk across 169 to the transit center. So that should make that a more accessible area for people than it was 6 months ago. But I know that the library has been used for different services. I know that they've been used for the law library has been in there for a long time. They'll come in and talk to people about legal issues, and so I understand where you're coming from. But you know, it's gone from a couple hours a week to a you know 5 days a week, multiple hours a day. So it's a little bit different than it originally was when we first looked at it. Um,
Really, were we
so
in there that often?
We are not.
We are now. At the moment, we're in the,
We have some regular hours
at the library.
every day, so.
Okay, good to know, thanks.
Could I just address
Yeah,
Councilor
please.
Brian, Jody, I should say Jody, because you're not in a bad voice. No, I think, I want to address did hear back about the license agreement, because if that's
Yeah.
a miss, we need to
We'll get to
apologize for
that.
that, because what I recall is Bill, Mike, Barb, Leslie at O'Brien's over a month ago when it came out saying, we don't feel good about that. Can we just get together and meet? So we assume that kind of came back as, we're going to hold off on that license agreement because we feel like we have some things to talk about.
Mike came before us.
Commissioner Beard went before the council.
Yeah, so it wasn't that we were waiting for this to talk about that because we feel like that was kind of premature to do that. And then, yes, in the last days, literally days, our attorneys have kind of looked at, okay, what are some other proposals we can throw out and have ready tonight if the conversation goes that way? Because we don't want to predispose even where this conversation's going to go, because this is the first time we're all together saying these things. And then finally, the goal of Family Resource Centers, or at least it is a grant-funded program right now with grant dollars. Frankly, the goal would be that within 5 years, the county has very little to do with Family Resource Centers. We're hoping that might be a nonprofit. That's why it's a little hard for us to do that, because we're really hoping that we're a much smaller part of that initiative in years to come. Something we hope we get started and we say, good, let us support you, but it can go somewhere else.
Sure.
Again, not germane to our decision, but good to know.
Bill, you want to speak, but I haven't heard from Angelica. We haven't heard from Angelica.
We haven't heard from her.
Yeah, go ahead, then I'll call Angelica.
Yeah, just 2 points to make, and especially on the nonprofit one. Cities under Minnesota law are barred from supporting nonprofits. You guys do not have that burden. You can partner all day long, and you can make that happen. There's only one thing that I can actually put in my budget that I submit to council, and that is support of the Scott County Historical Association. And the only reason that is the case is because the state specifically carved out a law and says that we can do that. So the idea of it going in 5 years to a nonprofit, from a staff perspective, I have a lot of concerns with that, because I don't know that we could legally even do that.
Well, it could go to a nonprofit,
Right, but
just
they might
not at
be
our
the one. Who knows
location.
where they'd be?
Well, right,
Yeah,
right,
that's
right.
right.
Exactly, that's right.
Yeah,
So
who knows where it would
it's
be.
from the
Yeah,
city.
yeah.
The other thing is, in regards to the agreement, once council had determined that they wanted to update the agreement, frankly, we just turned that over to the city attorney. And the city attorney looked at it, and they're the ones that drafted the agreement. I reviewed it very briefly. I think I changed one word, and then we sent it off over for you guys. So after it was passed by city council. So I just wanted to give you the background on the agreement as well.
Thanks. We blame our attorney for a lot of stuff, too. Angelica, we'd like to hear from you before we, if you want to be heard from.
I mean, just listening to all the ideas. I was part of a steering committee, like almost 3 years ago, I think, where we tried to look what was a centralized strategic location. Because of COVID and everything, things went different ways. I never heard what they picked, but I think that's where the library came from, if I'm not mistaken. And it is a good place where people feel welcome and not be, I'm just trying, in my opinion, because you do walk into this building, and even I that worked here, I'm like, yikes, like, where do I go? Even trying to work the elevator a while ago, it's like, I can't even get up here. So, I understand the feeling, and I think that was a good location. I think I was okay with all the, resources that were happening there and everything, all the different programs. I think what caught me off guard, and you even mentioned it, Barb, was the dental services. The flyer, when I saw it, said extraction. And I'll be honest, I know that to me, I was like, in a library? uh, it's not clean, sterile, hello? I mean, that just blew me out of the water. And it said on there, later on, we heard, oh, it's just, that's on there just, I don't know, for whatever reason, that doesn't really happen. But from that moment, that's where I kind of was lost. I was like, you can't do that, not in an open place like that, without sterilization. I mean, talking about COVID here, we're freaking out about COVID now, pulling out teeth in the middle of the library, that to me threw me off. And that's where I kind of was lost. And now, if we're talking about going to the transit center, and the location to me is perfect because we do have that bus service, to get us, and we have worked on that path, the walkway, over the bridge to get us there. So to me, that's a way better location. And I know that the bus service, if you just call them, I mean, you can find the closest location and get it too. So I mean, I don't know, unless I'm really lost on how the bus works, but I think, we could find a way to get them to the.
That's what I was talking to Ms. Harvey.
Right. I mean, no, I heard them. So it's like, to me, I honestly think, and I had a minor conversation about it too, I think that is a better location, seriously. Not everybody, I mean, because we're talking about the library, yeah, that was centralized, but are we just talking about serving downtown people? I mean, what about Southbridge, and what about, we have 169, that's, we're forgetting about everybody else, Shakopee isn't just downtown. So, I mean, that's my.
Thank you for contributing, appreciate it. John?
Yeah, not everybody might know this, but Janet Williams was the library director for Scott County. She actually, when I got elected, one of her last things to do was take me on a tour throughout the county, and she was within weeks of retiring. I think they could hear. I'm just speaking. Oh, okay. So Janet Williams was the library director, and she has obviously a wealth of a whole career of experience. She'd be the first person to tell you that the greatest need of people, the people that are in the most need, where do they most likely collect or gather? It's the library. She would tell me, it's spend the whole day there. The whole family would spend the whole day there, or this isn't great, but some people would drop their kids off there, and it'd become an informal daycare, which is not great. But so that became a reason, maybe why to have the family resource in a library, because you've got a ready population of the greatest need. And by the way, the people that the county wanted to serve are your residents. They're not different people. They're not the county's people. They're the residents of Shakopee that we're trying to serve.
Can you serve them with a bigger library, more computers?
Well, and I'm a little, I'm a little, I thought we were fully prepared to go to the Marshall Road Transit Station. If you guys said we don't want it there, I think we are fully prepared to go to the Marshall Road. So there is no push and pull here on not being at the library. We're prepared to go somewhere else. And that'd be fine.
How much longer do you think?
We have felt it's better because of the population. And by the way, the concept of libraries is evolving. I don't even know what it is exactly today, but I said to our staff, we should have a full presentation on what is a modern library. It's not just books and it's a community space. It's a gathering place of your community, not just around the books. It's a social place. So I don't know, but okay. So we're fully prepared to go there, and the meeting room. Obviously, that's been a question. In the one agreement I read that we're given, that we're here to discuss tonight, it says we're prepared to give you 100% full control of that conference space or that meeting space. The county will have nothing to do with it. It's all your deal. You know, so it seems to me we're ready to go to Marshall Road. You got full use. We'll operate strictly as a library. Obviously, we've had some bumps and some frustrations in the past, but I think we got a solution, right?
I don't think that's been presented to everybody.
Well,
and
I'm
that's
trying
where
to,
we're
trying
at.
to get us.
Yeah, that's part of why we're here.
Yeah, and I want to go back to, that's very good, John, because even if Family Resource Center does move, we still have the problem where when a nonprofit wants to reserve the meeting room, we let them, and that's how the dental clinic got there, and on their flyer, they said, this is the services the dental clinic provides, not necessarily at this time, at this location. We don't have staff patrolling that and, you know, doing that kind of thing, so if we need to change that policy or not manage the meeting room, I think that's kind of needs to be on our agenda too.
Bill?
Yeah, and to be clear, when we talk about the nonprofits, it's not the nonprofits coming in and reserving the room for an hour. That's.
Good.
I don't have
Well,
any-
that was that situation though.
Yeah, that's not any way in violation of state law. It's not going to get us in trouble. That's not the issue. It's when we're actively supporting with our city tax dollars a nonprofit that becomes a problem. And clearly, essentially being the landlord for a nonprofit opens that door. So that's what I was trying to get to.
I understand that part.
Thank you. Hey, Matt, you had a couple more comments. Then I think I see kind of where we're heading here, so, but please.
Well, the evolution of the library, I'll go back to, well, 21, 22 years ago. Small little library, book-based only, over the years, bigger building, more people using it, city's growing. Geez, computers came out, the little 286s, DX, 486, what are we gonna do with all that power?
Remember the dial-up
Now you
mating
work
call?
a 14.4 dial-up modem. And, you know, the library actually is progressing with the technology. But what's next? A lot of these books now are online. You can listen to them, online audio. So we are making steps in the library changes. My fear is, as you look at all these evolutions, now we have these libraries basically turning into government intake centers. And is that the future where they're going to take over that traditional learning of the library? And it probably will. And if that does happen, it can't function in the city building by state law. So if we're going to go down that path and we think that's the evolution, we should probably try to get ahead of it at a location that it can operate at legally.
As I've listened to the discussion, Bill, go ahead.
Well, I just want to make sure that everybody, Tom, do you want to talk?
I just would prefer to stay where it's at, you know, and I mentioned to Barb, you know, a lot of businesses like traffic. You know, right?
Yeah, breeds everything, yeah.
Right, so, you know, if there's more traffic, and whether they're buying something somewhere, traffic is a good thing.
No, I agree. So,
Except at the courthouse.
Huh?
Except here. We got to move it over there.
You know, I think COVID has changed the dynamics of a lot of the way we do things, created a lot more efficiency and effectiveness, especially for the delivery of municipalities or county entities, so I think that's good. But I view, for the most part, COVID's in the rearview mirror, and we're trying to move forward. I just want to take some things off the table because in the last year of all this discussion, the Family Resource Center was in our library for just a couple hours a week. I have the July calendar, it's every day for multiple hours. So it's morphing into, and that is a public room for reserving and not being used, it's being used here, so. I don't believe the Family Resource is in every city in Scott County. They're in a couple, they're not all libraries. I believe the dental operation is off the list at this point, which I hope that's true. I do view this as an extension of human services, but I'm indifferent to the library, and that's what came up on, let's try to do the agreement, and we're trying to separate it. Shakopee does own that building, cost us a little over 200 grand a year to operate it. So if we're gonna increase use, those costs may go up. I've tried to Google the future of libraries about a dozen times. I can't find a good article because it does talk about technology, it does talk about community, But there's no, I even asked your former library director that, he couldn't answer the question. Trying to find a solution, and over the last year, if you're looking at, I've talked to Mayor Williams as well. Yeah, we're in discussions over there in Savage, and it's fine too. If you're gonna go to the transit station, a lot of opportunities there. Is that right or not, or do you want it in the Shakopee Library? I think there was some concept of, because the periodicals are all gone in that room, and I've been up there, and it's pretty empty in that space, a good sit down to read spot. There was a talk of having the resource center build out a room there.
Stairs, yeah.
As I look at this, we're all leaders in this room. We make thousands of decisions all the time. And of course, we all want to be good partners, and we've had some bumps in the road in the last year on just a couple issues, right? If you make 1,000 decisions, maybe you're not always going to agree on 4 or 5. Very small percentage. Um, I think it's time to, we look at it as a city that is a city building, and now the county library wants more, and how do we work through that? Maybe build out a site and pay rent. As I mentioned, it costs us more money if you increase the use. Um, what what is this going to look like in 5 years, right? Um, I know even in Savage, you had, when that was built, you had some administrative offices in it. And I think you consolidated and pulled that out of that. So even just in the last 25 years, that's changed. Um, where we at the city are looking for a good partner in the city from the county, and I've asked, I think about 8 times, where's a plan? If you're going to come and expand or do what you want to do in the Family Resource Center, where's the plan? You present a plan, like most people do, right? If you want to try to get something done, you develop a detailed plan. We've talked about it in a roundtable discussion. Almost all of you never seen a plan. So I think that there may be an opportunity, but certainly if, because of all these discussions and these bumps in the road, that if you have a way forward in a different plan, that would be fine. You're still serving the populace of Shakopee and the surrounding communities. I can tell you for sure that this isn't all Shakopee residents that come for these services. This is in our surrounding communities as well. So that's kind of my take on it, and try to find a way forward rather than an op-ed in the paper, 2 Star and Tribune articles. What I got out of that was kind of disheartening. It kind of makes like 2 public bodies not getting along, and I think we all take pride in trying to get along. Those articles didn't help the issue, or I don't know if it helped us, but we are here today, and that's great.
I was unaware of those articles, Bill.
You want a couple copies?
Yeah, could you please?
Yeah.
Matt, you had some concluding comments or a few more things to say, or are we good?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, in listening to this, there is an underlying issue that we do need to discuss, and that's, do we want to revisit the 1977 usage agreement that we have with the city owning the building and the county running the programming and the staffing and so on and so forth? That is another issue that we probably should poke at a little bit here, but just to bring some closure, at least from what I heard around here, is that not all of us are convinced that FRC is actually a bad thing at the library, but those voices are on the county side of the table. You guys own the building and you're our partners. Some of us on this side of the table, I don't want to make it sides, some of the commissioners, this one included, thinks we probably could do just as good a job up at the Marshall Road Transit Center if we move up there, but it would be regrets. I think it's a missed opportunity. But if that's what we think we should do, the wings aren't going to come off if we move the program up there. Barb's reminding me that it is a grant funded. I remember when that grant came through as a new way to kind of consolidate this, that made it more effective, more efficient, and hopefully intervened in families' lives, families that could be troubled with truancy or crime or not being able to read or something, attendance problems, before they ended up on the other side in the judicial center. That's kind of where the hope is, that we head all this off. So I get that. But if we can bring peace in the valley by doing it at the Marshall Road Transit Center, okay, we'll do that. We're okay with that. Which still brings us to the underlying agreement, because there still is a building owned by the city, and the programming is run by the county. And I guess we're gonna get down to then who runs that, which I think there's a volunteer library board that we appoint that manages the program and content affairs of the library.
Not anymore. That used to,
Did
well,
they
no,
used
we
to do
still
that?
have a board
We
that,
have a board.
that has statutory responsibilities, but
Yes.
it's an advisory board. Before we were on this board, we transitioned, maybe John was on the board too,
Mhm.
but the county runs those services. But I think you're right, we need to decide about the meeting room,
Mhm.
if the county's still gonna run the meeting room or not, because
Because that's a county librarian that has the sign-up sheet in there, if I'm not
well, and it's
mistaken.
online, there's a lot, yeah, there's, and they usually, if it's a nonprofit or actually a resident, they let them do it, or we're gonna have a checklist of things that can't be, like the dental clinic, who else gets on that list? What about
Yeah.
the foot doctor who goes to the community center, can they also come here? Is that
Sure.
human services? Like,
Uh-huh.
that's, I think, where we're nervous, and frankly, I'd love for Jeannie to be able to talk to Mr. Thompson and work some of those things out, rather than us work that out, of how that agreement could work.
Yeah. Sidebar, the dental clinic. That kind of grieves my heart that somehow they've gotten sucked into this, because they're not even us. They're just good-hearted folks. Happens to be a dentist who said, you know what? God's been good to me. I'm going to give something back. And so they run this little clinic where they go around and they have folks who can't afford or don't have dental insurance bring their kids in, and they do exams. Sometimes they might brush their teeth while they're there. If there is a cavity or something serious, they give them a card for the free day at the dentist office. Bring them in, we'll take care of it. There are no extractions done, except I heard a 7-year-old with a loose tooth had the dentist pop it out. We do that at home with our grandkids.
With the string in the door, right?
Something like that, yeah. No blood involved, no spitting. But, you know, those folks are trying to do the Lord's work. Let's bless them and find a way to send them down the road and continue to touch a lot of lives and not bring them into this orbit. They happened to do it because there were a lot of needy folks who were showing up on this calendar. It just made sense to me, but sometimes you know what the road to hell is paved with, and that's good intentions, so here we go. And no good deed goes unpunished. So let's kind of leave the dentist guys out of this. They're not us. They had no dog in this fight, and somehow they got sucked into the discussion, okay? So, having said that, I think if it's, I'm looking at my commissioners, my colleagues,
Mike?
Marshall Road Transit Station is underway. We
Mike?
can go there.
We were talking about
And-
the renting out or the time slots of the conference rooms at the.
I hadn't gotten there yet.
No, you were there a minute ago. You just sidetracked yourself.
Okay,
So let's move back to that point.
now just a minute. Hold that thought, because we're going to go back there. So could we ask staff to go ahead and develop the plan and the timeline to go to Marshall Road?
I
Are
think
you guys
that's the
gonna be in
best, and I think
soon?
the cleanest is just give the city entire, I mean, say, look, we don't wanna make a mistake and let somebody use the room that you wouldn't be comfortable with.
Well,
You guys should operate the room.
We'll get to that in a minute. But Marshall Road Transit Station, that's the thing I'm trying to nail down. right
Yeah,
now.
but.
Let's go
they're-
there.
they're
Give
with
us a
it.
timeline, because it looks like we're booked in here through July. So how soon could we be at Marshall Road Transit Station? Are we talking end of the year? Are we talking next spring?
We'll have to do some work there, right, to modify some of the entrances and some of the office
Well,
space.
just help us manage expectations on
year?
the timeline.
Oh, it would be less than a year, I don't think it would
Months,
take that
weeks?
long. I would hope, it's all gonna depend on contractors and materials, the thing we're facing with
We
everything.
understand that.
But the goal would be, I would hope maybe by the end of the year that we could accomplish something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, safe to say first quarter of
Yeah.
the next
First quarter,
year.
yeah.
Does that eliminate the conversation? First quarter We're kind of set in here now. Can you bear with us until we get things set to do the transition and then, which
Like I
brings us,
mentioned, it was never, to me, about the Family Resource Center, it was the use of the space of the library. So
I understood.
I tried to remove that part of the conversation to begin with, because it is a good program.
Mm-hmm.
Even the dentist is doing good things, it's just the space.
So, but that, the space we're kind of glued into it now.
Right, I understand that.
First
We can't
quarter,
just throw,
and this is what, August? No, this is July. Yeah, because we're halfway through the year. We got it 6 months, 8 months to go, and we could be out of there. Can you hang in there with us for that long?
it's a reasonable expectation.
No heart surgery, nothing like that?
Not that I heard of. Matt, okay, now back to who's going to control this too, because
Yeah.
right now,
So,
in the olden days, I used to call the librarian and say, can I have the room?
well, and I'm looking for the history, because I don't recall myself, but I remember it used to be the city rented out that room based on an hour, 2 hours, and it was a lot of community groups that used it. You know, had some neighborhoods that were organizing and they'd meet there, or you had, I don't know, JC's on a rainy day putting their plan together for whatever, Derby Days, all these functions, social functions for the community. It used to be a lot of that, and, pardon me?
It still is, I think,
Okay.
yeah.
But I think the city did it back then. I'm not positive on that.
Since I was a kid.
Well, I think it was Mark McNeil that used
I
to
always
do a lot
dealt
of
with the librarian, but I think if we just can bookend that with some rules, maybe, some
that. Yeah,
guidelines.
and the reason I ask is because if the county is gonna do that room, now we're back to, okay, who is the county doing and what kind of time slots? Are they nonprofits? Are we now giving the nonprofits something for free, and are we setting ourselves up for legal trouble? And I don't know the answers to these questions. They're just things I'm thinking about. So I don't really have an opinion until I know the legal side of it, which it's not my forte.
Well, it's about I think the county runs the slotting of the hours of the thing. And if they were to move and we rewrite the agreement, then I think that the city would take over the slotting of those hours. It's a public room. So you're right, the groups can, it's just really who manages the hours of the aspect.
Okay.
That's how I view it.
Barb?
And a little bit more to that, because there's some liability and forms to fill out, you know, I mean, so there is just, I think it's just good to think about, it does take staff time before a transition. And yeah, I remember as a kid reserving in the old library for 4-H, and it was still through the library, so through the county.
We have the data. I think Chris could tell you who's using it today and how much, but the library staff does manage that. So to Commissioner Ulrich's point, turning that over to you, then you can make the decisions if you want those folks in there.
Out of curiosity, a clarification question. When people book the library, is there any setup, like they say, well, you want to use the room, but we need X, you know, we need something like.
In the past, I've used it, that it kind of has some tables in it, but the chairs are in the closet and you kind of come
Put them back.
maybe a few minutes early and arrange it.
There's a contract for nonprofits that you had to fill out. And so once it's on file with the county, in this case, the librarian, then you can repeat, we have your information on file, we'll let your group rent the room or use the room. So I think it's just, there's rules, you have to sign a form.
No, I just wonder if there's any unique room setup so that, you know, if somebody, if the library was booking it, they could just, in the old days, you know, when you request from me, sometimes you would say, well, we want an overhead projector, or we want, there's no setup to the room.
You gotta put it back the way they have it.
Okay, all right.
Well, Mayor, there was something different because before the library was one building, and then when this new one was built, they intentionally built it with that breezeway to where I recall them having meetings down there for whatever, and we were in this room separate, and the library was closed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
It still is, they give you a key,
still is.
you pick up the key.
Yeah.
Yep.
You get the key.
Yep, and, you know, somebody was thinking when they designed the building to be able to have that community function when the library was
Mayor
closed.
Williams.
Yeah.
Was that
I think the
Janet did
libraries
that?
have that.
Good for her, yeah.
I think we're gonna have to address the upstairs conference room also, just to keep that.
That's in the library though, the little
Yep.
northwest room, that's a small glass
And
room.
that's separate
there's
time
con-
frames. You gotta be out.
That's only operational during the library, and it.
Library hours, yeah.
And is much more for smaller meetings. It doesn't host large groups. The same with the homework rooms. People
Yep.
use those and go in them, and those close and open with the library.
Okay, so that, clear. FRC has got to be there probably through the first quarter, into the first quarter, but we are making plans to move it to the Marshall Road Transit Station. Now, part two. We've had an agreement back here, and look at that, it's one page, a little bit on the back. We just had a discussion at our workshop earlier, 68 pages on a Lakeshore Improvement District, just to get a little money from the state, 68 pages. So anyhow, now we've got a 3-page agreement that's been proposed. Leslie, I've got pages here that say 2, 3, and 4. Can you tell us who's
So
on
one
first?
was
What's
the
here?
existing agreement.
That's this one.
Number
Okay.
2 was the agreement from the city as a license agreement or lease.
This is the one where they came up that we went down and talked about. Okay.
Correct.
3.
And then number 3, we prepared, when the board said, well, what would a draft look like? We prepared for you to take a look at that was a, pretty much just the 1977 agreement updated.
Okay.
Where they provide the building, we do all of the rest. Number 4 was more to the commissioner's proposal that since it seemed to be from the license agreement, it was the use and the control of that large conference room that was of concern. It would turn that over to the city. We would maintain and take care of the operations on the interior part of the library.
Yeah, so we've worked hard on updating the agreement, as it used to be called, updating the agreement. We did that through our attorney. We passed it to our board.
Sure.
Came to your board, you voted it down. Now you're gonna bring a proposal back to us. We have not seen that, and we'll just wait on that.
Okay, so that's what number 4 is basically the work that our attorney did in updating the original, but I see some stuff highlighted in yellow. Is that what says that the city will control
Item
the?
3 is just updating. Item 4 is updating plus changing the room use.
Yeah, so the yellow.
That's what I mean. The yellow part is where the city controls scheduling the room.
Correct.
Okay,
And that, if the direction was to do that.
to do that, we have
As
one
Barb
that's,
suggested, Bill and I with the attorneys could put that together in that direction that I think the attorneys could agree to. There were some things in the license agreement that the county attorney wouldn't accept, and so we would have to come to an agreement on that as well.
yeah. So we've seen this within the last day or so. Would you guys want some time to ruminate on this?
Yeah, they haven't seen it yet.
Oh, you haven't?
Well,
Yeah,
first-
Staff together and work,
Oh.
then bring it to
Oh,
us.
trust me, just vote
first
yes.
off,
Matt?
we, by our own adopted policies, we don't take actions at workshops.
Right.
Correct.
So
Mhm.
we need to get that to our staff to feed out to us, for
Good.
us to review over time, and then
Mhm.
staffs two can work together with the legal people, and that's fine.
But if,
Okay.
if that's the direction, so I think that's what I and Bill need to know, is that the direction that you're all comfortable with is,
Just a thought, and I'm thinking of the practicality of old timers like me walking in to see the librarian and reserving the room because I'm gonna have my bird watchers group on town on Saturday.
Nice.
Now you're gonna tell me to go home, get online and contact somebody at City Hall. It could happen. I can learn too. But just a thought, if we're going to go this route where the city is gonna take over responsibility for using that public space, you may wanna consider just deputizing the librarian to go ahead and be your agent on site. Still a county employee, but I'm sure we can accommodate that, if that makes sense to you. Just a thought.
No.
I think that's a conversation for them too and the legal people to have.
Okay,
And the bird watching thing, we got $1 million corn crib we built just for that, Mike.
you did?
Yeah.
Sweet.
I don't, that doesn't seem to be.
Wasn't $1 million?
I,
Well, by today's wood standards, it probably.
Okay, hold on, I gotta bring us to, John's got something to say here
I
that.
can't support the deputizing a county employee. That seems like a
Not
bad.
deputy, that's a big word. I mean,
Well,
just have her-
I think the cleanest is for the city just to take over that room.
Even the scheduling and everything, if somebody just walks
everything.
next door
Yep.
and.
Then we'll never have a misunderstanding.
I think that is the issue about who's gonna take it over and who's gonna make the rules, and not letting one entity influencing the other rules.
Right. The rules is one thing. If the city's gonna be responsible, they should probably make the rules, but having a county employee be able to say, yeah, the schedule looks open, you can have it on Saturday from whatever to whatever, doesn't strike me as a big deal, but maybe I'm missing something here.
Just all be online and the librarian can just check online.
You're missing the conversation about how, what the rules might
if there's
be
human
between the city and the county that they both can agree on, and if they come up with a group of rules that they both agree on, maybe the county continues to do it under them rules, maybe not.
Okay.
I think that's a good conversation for both sides to have.
Okay. You want to have it tonight? Or you want to wait until they're done doing their magic?
Give it to staff.
Yeah, give it to staff. That's fine.
Drops back to punt. Here we go.
Well, we don't make decisions at workshops.
I know, we don't. We're just giving direction. It's direction here. We're giving direction to staff to do
What's the
this good
worst thing
work.
that happens? They can't come to an agreement, and we come back and have a conversation, and you feed us the steak that you promised that we didn't get tonight?
All right.
Make a note. Dave has something he wants to add to the discussion.
Yeah, I gotta lean in. So file this under the no stone unturned. I mean, we're looking at each other, talking about library, relationships, all those things. I wanna ask this question. Is it the city's prerogative to keep the library? I mean, is it something that you'd prefer maybe that we don't even have a library in Shakopee?
I don't think you can get away with that. I think you have to have a library.
Yeah, I think for vitality of communities, it's hard to identify who owns it and who runs it, but people use it. We have some data, 100,000 people use the Shakopee Library for various services and of educational purposes.
It's a resource, a center for knowledge. It's, we're trying to keep people educated, and a lot of people are trying to get away from educating people, and I'm wanting to get reading levels up, get kids reading, get people educated, get higher scores everywhere. That's not the goal. I think that's the goal of a library, and that's what I want to see. I would not want to get rid of our library.
I could use some technology training myself.
There's lots of it there.
there's lots of it.
Yeah, tons.
So 4 out of 5 are pro-library.
Yeah, but if you want to, that we don't need to go backwards here in this meeting. We offered for the county to buy it, and then I crossed that off the list, right?
Well, and keep in mind, like, again, that's why I prefaced the question, that this is file it under the no stone unturned. Not going backward, not trying to be, I just wanted to ask the question.
I think we've put together the idea that we could sell to you. We put together an updated agreement already. Yet from the county aspect, I haven't seen a plan about Family Resource Center, or I haven't, and this is fine because we gave you an agreement that was updated and passed our board, and now you're milling around a new one that I'm sure will come back through us, and that's fine, so.
Okay, so we've touched the room, scheduling, FRC going to the transit center, and staff is gonna work on the yellow highlighted amendments here. What else do we need to touch regarding this issue? Because we got a couple more to go on the board here together. Barb?
Yeah, I just want to go back to Bill about no plan. I think we came to you to say, we have this idea, should we make a plan? That was really when Jake and Suzanne came to city council. So I just want to, like, that's how we thought of it, and it's good for us to hear how you thought, like, we just felt like the feedback that was like, ooh, no plan, and that's where we started talking about these other issues. So that's really, I think we came there to say, we have this idea, what do you think about it?
No, I've always said, where's a plan, and then it was the room, and then it was, let's move upstairs and build it out. I'm looking, we're all money people. Cost us $214,000 to run that building. Well, if you're gonna really have a dedicated room, to me, that's how I took it, Family Resource dedicated room, well, then I think you should pay rent to help offset the cost, and it also, some of the other issues, it's inside the library, it's not in the breezeway in the separate when the library is closed. So I certainly was always looking forward to a plan, and I know it started as an idea, but eventually, okay, here's our plan, here's what we'd like to do. We never really got to that point, but.
We didn't.
And you and I talked, we're moving to the transit center, we're moving to Savage, and those conversations I have backed up with other conversations, the mayor of Savage and I'm going, oh, the county is solving their own issue. But I think in the background with the articles in the Star and Tribune and an op-ed that.
I don't think we wrote those, did we?
Huh?
We didn't write those.
We would have rather they
Well,
did.
they were written by a reporter.
Oh,
So
okay.
Yeah,
putting a bright light on our communities.
Former who?
Yay.
Is it a county employee?
It was former county administrator.
Yes.
Oh, they opted. Well,
Okay.
2 articles in the Star Tribune.
I don't know if any of, I haven't even read them. I haven't seen them.
I have, I wish I wouldn't have appeared. I mean, I don't think we had it, we, would have wished I wouldn't have appeared.
But, you know, we're all looking for solutions. We're all trying to move forward here in a positive way that benefits the county and the city.
Fully informed? Yep. Wow, 10 of us just talked about that for 40, 50 minutes and actually reached a conclusion, didn't scratch anybody's eyes out. Can't say we didn't want to, but oh, I'm being facetious. Of course we did. Good. Okay. By the way, at some point, we got an agenda here, 3 long, then it says other business. At some point, we need to talk about 16 and 18, what we want to do there. But you guys have that on your agenda. Maybe we wait on that a little bit, unless you feel like it. We're going to talk about law enforcement technology. We've got a lot of horsepower in the room that wants to talk about that. But before we do, can we get a brief update on the timing on the 169 pedestrian bridge, which seems to be taking forever to get done? Is that because we're waiting for stuff?
We're waiting, you can't get the green chain link fence that would match, so we had to go with a different kind of a guardrail, which is on order that we're waiting for.
So it
I
is
drive by
ordered.
it daily. It's ready to go. We just have to get the guardrail up there that matches the city's aesthetic look there on the bridge. The colors will
Yep.
match, so. Do we have a
Lordy.
timing? Is it this fall?
Yeah, it'll be this fall. It's my understanding that it should come in late September.
Lisa, you need to.
Well, every time they close a lane on 169 to do something on that bridge, we make the traffic report on all the TV stations because it backs up pretty fast and pretty far. Lisa, are you behind me? You're going to say
I
something?
am.
All right, go ahead.
I'm just going to say it again. It's my understanding that the railing is on order. It's scheduled to come in towards the end of September. If it comes in sooner, it'll get installed as soon as we can get the contractor mobilized again to do the work. And, you know, all of the bridge costs were paid for by the county sales tax and the federal funding that we received for that project.
There you go. You're welcome. That'll cost you some chocolate at the next dinner when we get together.
No, you know, it's on order. I can't get it, okay?
Sometime in September, we'll look for that. Good. Thank you for that update. Who wants to lead off on the law enforcement technology stuff? Is there a staffer? Because I'm way out of my depth on this one.
I just wanted to give an update on the timeline. It has come up, it's
Okay.
had a discussion, so I just wanted to get it out there for folks so they understand the plan for this. The decision or the reason our funding stream is to actually go into negotiations with an RFP sometime in 2025 time period. I know I've talked to Chief Tate more than once about it, and Bill and I have chatted or emailed, I guess, about it. But it's to begin the process mapping this fall, to take a look at it. You know, each one of the cities does things a little different, especially in their record keeping. And so going through this in 23 and 24, having some best practice discussions for us to administer it probably in a more efficient way and have data that is more uniform, that's part of this discussion. And then get to the requirements so that we could get into the negotiations and the RFP in that 2025 timeframe. This system went live, I believe it was 2015. So by the time then we begin to implement, you know, you will have had 10 to 11 years out of different modules of the system. It could be too that there are different modules for the system. Part of the conflict, I believe, with LETG is different elements within the areas within law enforcement and the fire had different preferences for different systems.
So this does include police and fire?
Correct. This, you know, it's your dispatch, it's your jail, it's your patrol, it's all of it, it's your records keeping, and there's different modules for it. So this could be, you know, we're kicking off even a discussion with Hennepin County in August to finally talk about maybe some consolidated dispatching and backing up and being able to have the same system. So it could be that it even looks different than what we know today with LETG as one system. But the plan is to begin that process mapping, that work this fall that we've talked about at the Scale Services. Cindy will be back again. We've had one preliminary kind of discussion. And then that work would continue over the next couple of years to be able to implement a system of that magnitude.
Yeah, I'm kind of picking up on some of this because I am not in on this conversation.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming this is a scaled group, kind of law enforcement, fire, communication, technology group. I'm just trying to get a little more background on what we're talking about.
Sure, council member. This is the large system that we use for law enforcement, for dispatch, for jail, for your field mobile, and for your records. It also,
We being who?
the county does it on behalf of the entire community, right? We all use it. So all of the fire, the dispatch, the jail, we all use LETG, and that's the name of the system. I think there's been some concerns about downtime. You know, it's been called an unsupported system. It still is a supported system. I would not say it is a perfect system. It is an old system at this time. I think most people would probably, I think the word clunky is what I heard in our discussion, you know, versus new systems. But it is supported. You know, on average, I think it had been down about 6 hours a year up until this year. It's had a few more, here's memory issues that they're trying to work through where they're rebooting it on, it's Thursday mornings or some time to make sure that it doesn't go down on folks. But it has had a few more issues this year than it had in the past.
Is that because more people are using it? There's more load on it? Or
That's part of the discussions the county is having. Greg Sorensen, our CIO, and Adam Peary are talking and trying to get those responses out of LETG for the downtime or the concerns with that. They believe it has something to do with the memory and the data capacity of it.
And to be clear, LETG is the name of the company that wrote this
Right.
software, and we're,
Correct.
okay, that, because some of us are really rookies on this. So,
Correct.
Okay, I think
Bill,
that,
you and Bill, and then Bill.
yeah, I just want to say that this LETG situation, I'd like to request from the county board that you guys advance this.
That what?
Advance this. This is a public safety issue, and our residents can't wait any longer for this system. And I have heard about some stories about
For
addresses getting mixed in a fire and the fire department went to the wrong house. This is a public safety issue. I just want to make sure that we get some talking on this, that it can be moved up into the funding to get some either replacement or something in different cities. And I've talked to the mayors, and we're all concerned. So, but I would let Chief Tate talk further on this. Bill?
Before Jeff does, Bill, you can fill in some blanks for us?
Yeah, one of the real issues with LETG is that not soon after the county bought it, it was then bought by another company, a competitor, who basically said, you know, we'll support this, but ultimately everybody's going to have to shift. And one of the things that I've heard from my public safety individuals there's a couple things. One is that a lot of the things that they were promised were not delivered, and probably because it was bought. But the other thing, and Jeff's going to talk a little bit about it from a user perspective, but quite literally, it is more than clunky. It's unwieldable. And so we have one of our employees in Jeff's department spends 2.5 weeks a month just full-time, just trying to pull data so we can run just our normal reports. And it's not just the city of Shakopee. Every one of the cities, your biggest ones, frankly, they use it more, are concerned about LETG. And it's a big issue for public safety. So the administrators and managers of Scott County have been talking about this at least for 5 years. We have been concerned about it. We have discussed it. I'll bet every couple months there's an LETG discussion that comes up. So it's not a Shakopee issue. You know, feel free to reach out to the administrators and managers in your particular districts, and they will talk to you about their concerns with LETG. And if we can, Jeff, maybe you can kind of give some user perspective on it.
one question before you go on. Is this the same as the 900 megahertz rollout that was roughly around 2015?
No.
No.
Okay. What's that?
Jeff, thanks. And, you know, you're talking to our backs, but
Sure. Mayor, council, board members, thank you.
Megahertz?
I do feel, well, a couple things. Number one, what we were promised with this system, I do believe if it hadn't been sold, we would have had this. I do believe this was a local company, that these services would have worked. Right now, we have jail wanting something, fire wanting a different thing, dispatch, and then law enforcement, all kind of trying to work a system, and it's not working good for any of us. I can tell you definitively, as a Scott County Chiefs group, this is our 1A. We can maybe under other business talk about what 1B is, but 1A issue in terms of what we prioritize, we think is our biggest priority. And I think we got excited as a group in terms of ARPA funding that was out there, that maybe there was an opportunity to move this up. That was one of the things that we looked at as a chiefs and we're asking the sheriff about was, can we move this up with the ARPA funding that is available? Because frankly, and Leslie and I have talked about this, there's not that many records management systems out there anymore. They've all kind of been gobbled up, and there's a lot of ways that maybe this RFP process doesn't have to be so long and arduous as well. It is, Bill stole my thunder a little bit, but LETG, when it comes to statistics, is not reliable. And we have found, going through this system, all these hand counting that we have to do, because we want reliable statistics, both so our council has them, but also so from a performance standpoint with our officers. And they've challenged us on some of these. Are you sure that's right in LATG? Oh, you're right. It's not. So we have to go back and fix things. It's halfway through 2022. We should not be spending a week and a half to 2 weeks hand counting and going through statistics just to make sure ours are accurate. I know a lot of other cities aren't doing that. I'm comfortable with the accuracy of our data, but it's important, it's essential, and there's got to be a better way. So as a county chiefs on the law enforcement side of it, we're looking at, the ARPA as a way to maybe hit the gas on this a little bit.
Jeff, we heard a description a few minutes ago, I think, Leslie, that there is a process that we're in that sounds like it might be involving a couple of years. I heard 23 and 24 mentioned. Is, in your opinion, are you thinking that's too long to wait? Do you think we can advance that, put a brick on the accelerator, whatever? Or the process that we're in for reevaluation and RFPs or RFQs are going to happen? What are your thoughts on that? Help us understand.
I believe it's in your CIP past 2026, 27. Is that right?
So it's the negotiation and in the contracting would be in that 25 time period. Beginning the implementation, it takes a while to work through these large IT ones, right? So right now we're in the middle of N4 for the ERP system, right?
Okay, help us out, N4 and ESP.
That's our large system that Danny's been updating you on that we're replacing, right? It's our employee relations, our financial, our accounting. It's a 3-year process we're in. This one comes in on the heels of that from a funding standpoint and from being through the requirements and ready to go out for an RFP and select the right program.
So is it the negotiations you're talking about, is that developing the standards we're looking for, the requirements we're looking for?
Part of it, and Jeff maybe can even speak to it better than I can, but each of the cities does things a little bit different, which takes extra work on our end, and that's part of the data issue. They all use them a little different, and then it takes time. So as we've been trying to get data for scale, it gets more complex and difficult to get. And so, as we talked at services, is there a way that we can get everybody in line trying to do these things? You were, I believe, at that meeting, and we had a discussion on how do we get there, and we need to get through that with the administrators as well. So that's part of the work on the mapping and understanding how people are doing things, and then what would that best practice be as we move a system forward.
So we're several years away on that timeline, and I worry about the frustration that builds as we go towards 26, 27 when something, and maybe there's a way to do it just with the jail, getting the jail in the system, or I don't think there's gonna be a magic system that's gonna do what we thought LETG was gonna do.
Matt?
Yeah, question. Does all the various updating that the county's doing, whether it's IT, financial, or all the other things that you've mentioned, does that play into pushing this off? If,
Can I be honest, Matt? No, it's been in the timeline for this. Our large ERP system went.
ERP.
One ERP system went in 2008.
What's
So
ERP, he's asking?
that's the one that's the employee relations and the financial. It's our large system that we use, right, for our basic backbone. And so that one, we've started the work on that here. We will be coming forward, I would guess, with a recommendation later in the year, right? And it's going to take us a couple years to implement that. Both of these systems that we're talking about, you know, are $4 or $5 million, $3 to $5 million. So it's a considerable expense, and we're getting, you know, the 15 years out of the first one. Even if we start to implement something along a change in dispatch potentially, or the jail, as the chief suggests, you know, it's 10 years out of a very expensive LETG system that was implemented. And so trying to work through that and the value of that. So no, it's not pushing it off. That was the long-term plan for these.
well, I'm asking, how do we speed the process?
I'm not sure that the county can right now, in all honesty,
Maybe I
from a
should rephrase
resource.
that. What is hampering the county from speeding the process? Is it money? Is it IT experts?
It's going to be a combination of staff capacity and finances.
Okay, so there's no opportunity to go outside of staff to have an outside aid to this?
We use that quite a bit already, and you would be using some of the experts, from whichever firm you use to implement, and their project management team to help with some of
They're
that.
already doing the one that's currently in process?
Correct.
Are you also gonna need, different law enforcement to have some, similarity in their systems, or do things in the same way so that their technology can work? Is that part of the dynamic?
That's part of the discussion on the. That's part of the discussion on the process. What a time for two speakers to go now. That's part of the time on the process and process mapping and the requirements gathering for the systems that you're going to look at. Now, like the chief says, there's not a whole lot of systems out there, but they do some things differently. And I do believe the sheriff's office feels it probably, as Jeff mentioned, won't be one system this time.
Bill?
You know, I think I can speak from all the managers and administrators in the county on this particular issue, because it's the chief's number one concern, it's our number one concern. Oh, there we go. It's both the chief's number one concern, but it's also the administrator and manager's number one concern. And we fully understand what was the thought process was, and again, if it wasn't for this intervening fact and them being bought out, I don't think there'd be a problem. You know, as Jeff pointed out, you know, we didn't get the things we thought we were going to get because they stopped developing it, because once it was bought out, they're done with it. They're still supporting it, but it's certainly not being updated. So the point is that anytime we have a plan and you know, situations change that, and I honestly believe this, I believe this is impacting our public safety. And I'm not the only manager or administrator that believes that in this county. And that because of that, we really need to rethink that plan and try to move something else forward. And like I said, this has been a concern of ours for at least 5, maybe 6 years. And as Jeff pointed out, it's obviously a concern for the chiefs as well.
Do you have more to contribute, Chief, on this?
No, again, I just stress that, you know, this is several more years under this plan. It's not gonna go away, and I don't see it getting better. I see it compounding and becoming more of a grind and more of an issue.
Chief Coleman?
Well, good evening, guys. This has been a thorn in my side from day one. with LATG, just by the name. It should be a public safety system and not a law enforcement system. And that's what LATG was. It was a law enforcement system. It did nothing for the fire departments. Our CAD system was not built out ever, and we are running on a law enforcement system. We can't get our own records out of LATG. So that's our problem right now. We have to take all our information and put it into our own records keeping system. So that's the issue for me, and it's taken a lot of time. This is really passionate to me, I'm sorry. My folks, we put a lot of time and effort into this. We sat on them committees and went through all the RFPs, told them what we needed. We got zero. And today, we still have zero. This needs to change.
What information is it that you need?
The system was supposed to be, we have a great dispatching group. I love our dispatchers, but they're handicapped. The system was supposed to be able to dispatch our trucks by where they were located, by, if I called for we call it a box alarm or a second alarm. Every county, every fire department in the county does it the same. The system was supposed to come up, it would say second alarm, it would tell what units were supposed to respond to that call, done deal. Now they're going through a page of books, trying to figure out what to dispatch. It's slowing us down. It needs to get fixed. I'm sorry. It's the best I can say.
Rick, our 911 people are having to go through books to dispatch the trucks?
Correct. On a second alarm, a third alarm, a fourth alarm. When I need more resources outside of my fire department, when I call Savage for a second alarm, they have to go through the book. Well, I don't say Savage, I say I need a second alarm. My second alarm is Savage, Prairie Lake, and Chaska right now. They have to go through the book and figure out which cities to call. For
Who's
every
Shakopee second alarm contacts, basically, is what you're telling
correct,
us.
and it doesn't tell Savage what I really need. You know, we have like spreadsheets in our station that we have to go through when we get called to a box alarm saying, okay, Savage, we're getting sent to their quadrant, northwest quadrant. We got to go through and see what piece of equipment they want. Yeah, it's not set up that it just shows up on the computer. And that was what this system was supposed to do for us through that RFP.
So I will say, I agree the fire, so that the dominating choice and the priority for the cities was LATG, and it was over the field mobile, right? And I think to the chief's point, the cities all wanted LATG. The jail and dispatch would have preferred not to. So they are the ones, I would agree, that have had to make workarounds and have had to do something. We certainly can have, you know, Scott come in. We're having the discussions with dispatch and some of those things. But this was by far driven by the mobile app for law enforcement. And to his point, that's why law enforcement is in the title. And so we did go through an in-depth process of scoring and working through this.
Now, this is 7 or 8 years ago when we.
No, this is 2014, 15,
Yeah, 8 years,
when we went through the process and we had them scored. It was an in-depth process that we went through, and then when it finally went live. So fire in the back, I can remember them even then scoring this lower, just as similar as the jail did. Personally went over with Gary and we took a look at the jail module to make sure they even had one that worked at the time.
But at the same token, just one last thing. I remember coming to the board when you guys bought LATG, and we had to fight for the board just to get a fire module. To get more money put into the system.
Turn your mic on.
No.
Yeah, I think I'm on.
Yeah.
And again, totally get it. The real.
It's on. It was on.
The real issue is that they got bought.
Yeah.
And then everything changed. And I guess all we're saying is that we fully expected that they would develop the fire module like they had said they were going to do.
Didn't happen.
But when we have plans that change, or when we have circumstances that change so fundamentally, you know, all we're asking is, shouldn't we change our plan so we can now ensure the safety of our residents? And I can't stress enough, I encourage all of you to talk to the management administrators in your particular areas. You're going to hear more than what I'm telling you. It is important.
Good.
Right, I think if you talk to even the administrators or the police chief or the fire, this isn't just a Shakopee issue, it's for our county.
Sure. Is,
Our residents' public safety can't wait to 2025. As I said earlier, we were talking about the library, we make 1,000 decisions all the time. Not all of them work out, right? It's like a number one draft choice. If we look back and say this LEGT was great or whatever, times have changed, and it's not, and sometimes that happens, and yeah, they're expensive. So are number one draft choices, but now it's reflecting on our public safety aspect in our county, and that's a concern. I hear it from the mayors. I'm sure that you would too as well. So I request that you consider advancing that. And I know there's obviously some other issues.
There's gotta be,
Talked about it, yeah.
there's gotta be some kind of a dispatch workaround in the interim.
I hope so. Hey, is there software out there that does
It
this?
sounds like.
Or is it gonna be custom,
It sounds like the
custom program?
dispatch doesn't know who to.
That's what we're trying to say. It's finding the right one.
Okay. Second question. This is a county-wide issue. Does that mean the county needs to take the lead on this? Or is this a scale executive committee initiative, or what do you think?
It's,
Yeah, and we'll get to how we pay for it here in a minute, but
it's been talked
Eventually.
about at Scale Services. That's where we've
It
talked
has,
about
yeah.
it in best practices with our BRM and Quality Improvement Group, moving with the mapping this fall and into the next couple of years.
okay. So it is on our radar. It's out there on the horizon, but the passionate feeling is we should maybe pull it back a couple years closer
Well-
instead of being out there. Is that gonna be possible?
And I'm asking, is there a dispatch workaround patch until we get there? It sounds to me, if I'm understanding this, and maybe I'm way off, but if there's a second alarm, they don't know, if Shakopee's got a second alarm, the time breakdown is they don't know who gets that second alarm without looking it up, old school way.
Sounds like it,
So it almost like you have to have your cities
yeah.
listed to where the dispatch can know faster who to contact and what's needed.
But we will follow up with Scott, and he can address that issue. I mean, they can talk to it far better than I can. I am not the one to talk to it. I just wanted to bring out that timeline so that people knew what we were talking about and where we were at. Because I know this has been, even now, to implement a system is going to take some time. It's not going to happen overnight.
Just to follow up on that, I want a little more clarity on that. If we like said today, hey, we're gonna buy another system, how long would that process be to get everybody together, to analyze systems, to agree on a system, to get it? The whole thing that would be needed, how long would that be?
It takes time. It's going to take you a couple of years. I mean, the last time we did LATG, that's why I said, I think if we get started this year, we're still looking at that 25 timeframe that we're probably talking about.
Yeah, which is 2.5 years now, yeah.
We need to find some kind of a workaround patch until we get to that point.
Is that doable? Is that something for Scott Hawes to talk
I
about?
think that's
Don't
what we
really have a
have to talk
choice
to
at this
Scott
point.
about. I can't speak to that. Maybe Jeff can, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm out of my depth on this whole thing, so, Rick, what do you think? If you talk to a microphone, just stand right there and talk, if you would, thanks.
I can tell you, I gotta turn it on here. I can tell you that there's not a workaround. The workaround was the paper. LETG can't handle what we requested with the RFP when we originally went out.
Do you know of a software package that would accomplish what you need? Do you know of
Yes,
any?
there was some, but they were more money at the time, so.
10%, 100%?
That was a
More,
long time
just
ago. I'm
more,
not
okay.
a money guy to start with, so.
Some of you that have been following this, though, technology has been keeping up, moving faster. Is there systems out there that are known and better, that could be off the shelf? Might have to change completely what we're doing, but.
Well, the off-the-shelf was what became problematic last time because Jeff's smiling back there, everybody had their own way of wanting to do something, which then makes the system more complex. That's part of the discussion on getting us to kind of a common best practices as well.
And I think the administrators frankly would support doing things the same way. All of our individual departments might not be happy with it, but, you know, we've seen what we've got now. And I'm pretty sure that we all could sit down and we could figure out something that would, so we're all speaking the same language.
You were pretty clear at services on that, so I would agree with you.
David?
So, point of clarification, just because this all happened, you know, whenever it was, 6, 8 years ago. Back then, there was an RFP involving, I'm assuming, managers, chiefs of fire and PD. No one, again, we're wanting to ask questions, no stone unturned kind of thing. Did the county force this system? And I'm just because I wasn't, so again, I'm not trying to.
No, yeah, it was, and no, there wasn't a force at all. And again, that intervening change was the company got bought.
For sure, 100%.
Not twice.
That's right, I forgot about that. They actually got bought twice. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it was a well-reasoned process. Not everybody got what they wanted. Fire was told that they were gonna get their module, but it's that intervening thing.
So, and did I also hear, I think Chief Tate was talking about, like, the future, whatever that future is. Okay, you're saying the administrators could come together for process flow being the same. But in reality, do we think that it's gonna be a jail, I think you mentioned, you know, system for the jail and dispatch, and a system for PD over in Shako or, and then a specific fire, like different systems?
I believe that. I believe that there'll probably be some type of interface systems based on what we've known today and what we've learned. So that was part of it. If I was to pull the scales from the RFP, you'd see fire very low, jail very low, mobile very, very, very
Right.
high, which carried more weight overall in this discussion, which led to LETG, right? So that aside, I do believe, as Jeff mentioned, I think the sheriff has said there's probably the potential for different modules to look at and to implement versus one system.
And by, okay, when you say modules, within the same family, the same software, or LATG,
promise you
element?
that. I
Okay,
wouldn't
right.
promise you that.
Yeah, that's where the question would then be, if there's a workaround, so to speak, if a PD or some number of PDs and the sheriff or whatever, some combination wanted to go out and do, we have LATG today, but LMNOP is better today, that they could go do that and eventually coordinate with jail or dispatch or,
Correct.
so our
So
system
if I'm
wouldn't.
following you correctly, could our system be interfaced with if a group of cities or the sheriff wanted to go out and contract for a different system and interface? Yes, it could be done. I think it would be fairly expensive to do that.
Sure.
Scale concept.
Which, yeah, I mean, the idea, of course, is economies of scale, but public safety, workflow issues, you know, maybe it is better if workflows aren't gonna change.
Well, one of the problems you're gonna have with that model is if you have this group doing their own thing, this group doing their own thing, this group doing their own thing, and they all made their own investments. When you put your large one together, you've lost a lot of your finances.
Totally agree, but we're just talking about anything, right? Talking about the wild, the ridiculous, the ones that are 4 years out versus the ones that are ready to go in
But then in
90
'26,
days.
when you want to put a conglomerate together,
agreed.
you've got people that have already made the investment, and
Right.
they're gonna say, we already made our investment.
Exactly right.
Yeah, and I don't think any city wants to go out on their own, because the beauty of scale is the recognition that by together, we're stronger and more efficient than we are doing things on our own. And so I think we're all committed to work to that and do what we need to do, at least from the administrator side, to find a solution. And frankly, we shouldn't go backwards. We should just learn, refine, and move forwards.
Bill, if I can ask you a question, I'm trying to put one thing that happened in context. We had the data analyst analyzing the activity, peaks and spikes of activity in the police department.
Yes, sir.
And what we discovered, I think, was that because all the police departments enter the data differently,
That's
we
exactly
get
right.
crazy results. Is that right?
Yeah, that's totally right. And it's because we look at things differently and we report things differently. And so when you look at the LETG data that you currently get as it stands today, you can't compare departments against departments because it's meaningless data. Because we're not inputting it the same. And that's why it's so really important on all of us to get on the same page.
Yeah.
So when you, as the policymakers, are looking at data, it's actually real data.
Get an example of that?
Well, just remind, just a politician that really knows nothing. The data seemed to show that like a Wednesday was the busiest calls of the week. Well, that was only because that person entered the data on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Let's let Jeff talk for a
Yeah,
second.
a real quick example, a neighboring agency creates an ICR for everything.
ICR.
ICR. And
Incident report.
Creates and generates. a
Okay,
number.
thanks.
Okay, that city does not have nearly the calls for service that we do in Shakopee, but if you look at their data, they have all these incidents. And it's directed patrol, or it's a hotspot, I'm out on a hotspot, parked, I'm gonna create an ICR for that. We don't do that. So yes, you can, it's not apples to apples in any way, shape, or form on that.
And if you look at this community, you're looking at, oh my God, this crime wave. I mean, all of this crime that's going on is really, and I think this community was actually noted in one of the local newspapers about that recently. So,
Interesting. Barbara?
So, I mean, I think what you're asking, can we push up the process and then also push up the 10 or 12 million or whatever, not an insignificant number in our things. I think from what I've heard, I think our board will need to talk about this and we'll need to workshop again. We've all, I think, heard reports, we hear things, and yeah, I have 3+ Shakopee different communities and mayors and administrators and chiefs, and the level of frustration and urgency varies. It does vary. We talk about it quarterly probably. So I think we should workshop it. I think maybe there's some capacity issues that some of the other scale partners can help with, because I really think it's going to be a capacity issue to even start the process of getting all the cities and all the even police and fire on the same page. And so let's all think about that, because I truly, I think we have a capacity issue because we've got big stuff going on. And besides moving up the 10 or 12, maybe I'm guessing the wrong number. I think it's a big number like that.
It's probably $3 to $4 million.
Oh, okay, good. That's way better.
It'll be 12 before they get done.
But it's the time it takes to coordinate all that and get everybody on the same page, because from our experience, that's not easy, and that takes a lot of time, because everybody, rightly so, is gonna lobby for what they want in it, and lobby hard.
You should, yeah.
And
Work right.
so I think there might be some discussions to have about capacity and resources.
And maybe there's an opportunity for some standardization here.
Right.
Please.
In the different departments, but I'm glad this was on the agenda. These are real items. Public safety is a big concern. It is not just in Shakopee, it's for our entire county. This needs to move up the list. The former draft choice didn't work out. Whether there's a Band-Aid for short term, I know that in the past, when you picked this program, it was geared for long term, and that's the way we all should be looking at when we make big purchases like that. The draft choice didn't work out. We're gonna get a new one. It's gonna cost again, same 20+ year horizon on the vision, and make our system better. That's what innovation, making it effective. I don't wanna go backwards and discuss what went on in 2015. I have no interest in that. I know this is a public safety issue for fire and police, dispatch, and our jail. And
There's no reason why a standardized data entry countywide couldn't be worked on and implemented prior to this system coming on board.
That's what I'm saying, yeah, I would hope. Is scale service delivery the right place for this to happen? I feel like that's where it lives, right? And we both have representatives there, so.
yeah. Yeah, I think so, Barb. It does, and it's been a frequent topic over the years in service delivery, and you know, administrators and managers need to roll up our sleeves and work with our departments and all agree at what we're going to do in regards to reporting, and we need to make that happen. And that does need to be, in my opinion, the first step. And so that's probably on us as administrators and managers.
Well, I think we've heard it here, and we sense the urgency and the passion behind it. We're now kind of clued in that this is going to have a number of about 100 master gardeners, about 3.6 million.
Nice.
So,
Programs.
okay, that's the deal. Okay, so it's going to be some money. We're aware of that. We're also aware of the constraints of gathering the information, herding everybody together. I think we've gotten some ideas that, like Matt just talked about, the workaround could start with standardizing processes and data entry and things like that. And once again, I'm talking out of my depth. But we're aware of it. Let's pay attention as it moves forward. If it's at scale service delivery bill, how do you want the county board to harass you guys to keep you on track and moving ahead? Or we just ask for a report now and then?
Yeah, let Leslie and I talk about this discussion with service delivery, and then, we'll get everybody in a headlock and we'll move
From there.
forward.
All right. Looking forward to that. Jay?
Just a quick thought. Do you believe that the information gathering you did in the past for this current program will help advance the next step? So maybe we've done some of the legwork?
That was,
Point.
what was current at that time. The processes, I do believe, changed some with LATG. The other big thing that took a long time was how much data we transferred and maintained and kept. And that is a huge, huge issue because there's huge databases behind this. And moving this and retaining it and what needs to be kept, I'm just shaking his head. It took a long, long part of the LATG project. So it's going to take a work plan to get through and understand all of that. That's why I'm saying, even if the board magically had $4 million to do this in 2024, I think it would be very difficult with the things we have to go through on a system like this to be ready to do it. And I'm just being honest from what our staff has talked about, what our CIO talks about, our business relation managers who do this type of work.
Good. We're fully informed and ready to move along. Somebody's not.
Almost, I don't know service delivery. Is that just managers and administrators? It's not chiefs or?
No, they get invited. The sheriff's been invited. The chiefs have been invited. Commissioner Ulrich sits in on that committee. So it's more than.
I'm just thinking the end user.
I think the work groups wouldn't actually be service delivery, but it would be putting that and providing direction from them, I think, to do the work.
I totally agree with that, yeah.
And then someone mentioned ARPA. Would this be something that would fit into the ARPA?
Well, I'm not sure. Well, I don't know how the cities have spent their ARPA.
Well, that was my next question.
But ours is, fairly
Right.
committed to.
No, I get. I'm just saying, would
mental
ARPA,
health and other things.
would this fit in the ARPA bucket? And then, that was the next part. Would cities be
Yeah,
able to
we'd
kick
have
in on
to
that?
check, but I think law enforcement is one of the things that is probably eligible in ARPA. Oh.
And we had preliminary discussions as managers, about using some of those funds. And I'm pretty confident that, I don't know how much, but I'm pretty confident that, we're willing to put our money where our mouth is. It's a big issue. And again, we understand where the county is on it. And I can't speak for all of the managers on that one, but, certainly that's something that should be up for discussion.
Okay, thank you for a good discussion on that.
Sorry, one last thing. I know we have other business. I'd really love to know what 1B is in a sentence. So there's 1B.
Embedded social worker.
Okay, all right.
Which I'm going to talk about on our round robin.
Okay, there's going to be a round robin now. Okay, good. County Road 83. Let's move to County Road 83.
So we were just going to give a quick update, and if there were any questions, I think Tony couldn't be here, but gave some thoughts to Lisa, so we'll go quick.
Good. Oh, hold on just a sec. Bill?
County Road 83 is an incredibly difficult project with so many things going on down there. I just wanted to say from our perspective, first of all, the county has done a good job on things. It was a little rocky at first, but, you know, I drive that section every day. And, you know, it's moving, it's moving forward. I would just like to express my appreciation for the county doing the project and, you know, looking forward to it being completed, obviously, but thank you very much. And I think the mayor had a comment that he wanted on the price tag.
Is there any green fence involved in that?
I like the price tag before.
I hope not.
$1.4 million. I asked county administrator at that time for triplicate copies of it. But, you know, for every difficult project, there's a great outcome. And this is a busy corridor, and the effect is there, but I do travel through it too. Um, but, you know, it's like anything else. Once the project gets completed, everybody goes, wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so a little tough time, but we're going to get there, and it's going to be great, and it's going to serve our communities very well for the next, hopefully, 30 years.
Well, let's just have a moment of silence while we revel in the compliments that the city paid us. Feels good. Thanks, Bill and Bill. There will be a ribbon cutting
Oh,
and
yeah,
it'll
do
be.
we get a rebate then, or?
No.
I was looking for one of those grand bars, but I couldn't find one.
The 100 grand bar, yeah.
Just maybe touch on a few things. I've got communications schedules, scheduled delays, and some traffic control things I was just gonna touch on. We've been having weekly meetings. We have a communications consultant on board, and that communications consultant and our construction manager meet daily, and then they're out working with your businesses. We've had really good working relationship with people in the field from the city. Darren Manning, I've heard a lot of good things about the job that he's doing, and also with Spock. So those things are occurring weekly, daily, anytime they're needed. The business communication has improved now. It was a little rocky at first, from what I understand, but we've been able to shift our points of contact with businesses versus first we were working with property managers, and the word wasn't getting down to the operations people in those businesses, so we've shifted that, and I think that's improved. We meet regularly with McDonald's, Culver's, Moody Cow, and Canterbury. We actually have a weekly meeting with some city staff and Canterbury with Randy and several people from his staff, Mark Erickson, and the communications people. They've been understanding of the things we're doing on the project, and they've been cooperative. So I think that relationship is good. We have been able to do a pretty good job of getting the information into Google Maps, and so that we're getting real-time changes as traffic control shifts occur. So that's been good. And I think the one thing we wanted to say is that we're very fortunate that our low bid was with such a good contractor. Hoffman has been really excellent to work with. You know, when I talked to my staff about it, they said, well, nothing's going well. You know, they've had challenges daily. There's hiccups pretty much every day on the job between supply chain issues or things that we're finding that didn't show up on the as-built plans, that we don't know whose utility it is. There's just all kinds of challenges out there in the field. The schedule right now, July 13th, we're going to be starting the concrete paving on southbound 83, southbound 169, the southbound entrance and northbound 169 exit ramps will be closed from July 12th for 7 days. They'll be opening up late Monday night on July 18th. Then on August 8th, traffic on the new southbound lanes will be closing 12th and the unbridled intersection. And we know that originally there was discussion about not closing 12th and unbridled at the same time, but what happened when we had to rebid the project, and then we had issues getting the the valves that Spuck needed for the water main changes, we had to change things up. So sometimes that happens with projects. Unfortunately, we could not follow through with that original commitment in the previous bidding of the project.
And how long will that be closed?
Let's see here. It's planned for 45 days, but now we have it down to 31 days.
Thanks, Lisa.
So we do not anticipate any problems with our temporary easements at this point. We'll be able to complete the job within them. We've been working really quite a bit with the police department on event planning and working on those. The biggest events coming up on the 21st through 24th with the Summer Jam at Canterbury. And then we'll be opening those northbound lanes on 83 to Barrenshire to be able to manage that traffic control. We've been doing that on events that are over 10,000 throughout the summer. But I think we're finding too that we're able to manage those events better than we thought we would with the system that we have in place. So we continue to evaluate that. Our emergency management people are in the middle of that with the police department, and our traffic control is adjusting as we need to. So our goal is by the end of the year to have all of the 83 mainline paving completed. We're pretty confident we're going to be able to make that goal. Surprisingly, the comment was made to me that, we're having decent weather right now. That should be helping things, but it's actually hurting things. It's making it dustier, making it hard to do things. So we could probably get some rain to help out, which is sometimes counterintuitive. And then in 23, we'll have to come back and finish the east leg of 12th Avenue and get that finished up. That will not get completed this year.
East of
So-
83?
Pardon?
Which part of 12th Avenue?
12th Avenue, east of 83.
When's the timeline on that then?
That will occur next spring.
Right.
But
Lisa,
then
the go ahead. Yeah.
a couple of big changes that have happened, and Ryan probably can speak to this better than I can, but with the amphitheater, we've had to make some in-the-field adjustments, and that's been big, and it's hurt the schedule of the project quite a bit. We actually had the contractor stop work on things for a few weeks because we had to adjust the storm sewer to accommodate Canterbury. It involved a 1,700-foot storm sewer revision, so that's pretty significant. And then we had to change the concrete piping from 18 inches to 30 inches, so that gives you an idea. It's pretty significant, and that caused a pretty significant schedule change. The other thing is that the manhole locations needed to be revised, and that's creating some problems right now as we're trying to work through all of those changes, because we had the utilities come in and do their work, and they were setting their locations, and then we come back and told them that, oops, we got to change all this stuff. So now we're having to work around those utilities. We can only order them to move once, and so that is, making it a little bit difficult in the field as I talked with Jake about how that was working. We had 2 manholes that were 48 inches that did get installed before we made this change, so that's going to be throwaway work.
Ouch.
So we'll just all have to work with that. The good news is that 18-inch piping that we had, the contractor was able to reuse it, so we're not going to get charged for that. So we've been able to, I think Jake's done a good job of negotiating some things with the contractor out there in the field. Like I said, we've had some challenges with as-built plans. We've had some unknown utilities out there in the corridor that we've had to figure out, spend some time figuring out who owns them and if they're live or not. So that's taken some time. One of the things that's going to be changing, or may already be changed as far as I know, is that we're going to be adding some of those changeable message signs in various key points along the corridor. I believe there's going to be 5 changeable message signs. I think there was a desire to have more than that, but we're really concerned about sign proliferation out there already and, you know, getting too many signs out there. And so I think that's kind of where we're at with the project. It's a big project and it's got a lot of complications with it. There's a lot of things going on out there. I think between the city and the folks at Buck and the contractor and the county staff, everybody's doing the best they can, pull their sleeves up every day on the project and get the next problem resolved. So I think hats off to Ryan and his team and the police department and what they've been doing out there. We just have a really good cooperation going on that project. So
I have a question on our roadway agreements you have with all the cities, including Shakopee, on a major project like this. You had one in the 13 on the roundabout in Prior Lake last year that had some unique challenges as well. But here on 83, for our share, is it common practice that you collect that money within the first several months of the project starting? I think Shakopee paid their share. Is that common to all cities and all
yeah,
your partnership
typically
agreements?
we collect the money up front, and then at the end of the project we kind of even up. But right now we actually will need to be coming back to the city for the work that we're adding for the amphitheater. Um, there was a change order associated with that, and I know we're in the process of preparing that amendment to your existing agreement to accommodate those charges.
Our check that we sent you was that, I think in the memo it said paid in full.
No.
Nice try.
For those items, I think it was paid in full.
Jay. Jay.
Nice try.
All right, thank you. Just a quick question. You mentioned closing, I think it was Berenshire and 12th at the same time in previous iterations of the plan. We were going to do it at separate times. I guess it's a question on an emergency management standpoint. Is that going to be a concern for you, Chief, or we'll be able to work around that?
So there's other outlets that we have.
Shenandoah and,
Yeah, there's other outlets that we have, including the old gate too there by the stables that we're going to be able to push people out. So July 3rd, Canterbury's had big crowds all summer. They've actually had some, whether it's camels or poodles, they got plenty of people out there. But July 3rd is obviously the big day for them, and we geared up. I think we might have had 8 people out there with traffic. That's unique because everybody's parked on the shoulder. They're parked in Seagate. So it's always a rocky start to get everybody out of there. The lot was full. We got everybody out of there within an hour. That lot was cleared, which shocked me when I heard that. So Summer Gym's a little different because you're going to have buses and a lot of ride share and other things that happen. But typically on those big events, that lot is cleared out within an hour. And that's just a lot of signing. It's a lot more bodies out there directing traffic, and just going to be a little bit more unique. But we've been doing all right so far.
Just want to say, Canterbury, thank you for the great work you did. And you mentioned the 3rd of July, and you can imagine it's not just the folks at Canterbury, it's everybody in the community coming down to watch the fireworks too. So great example of working. So
We got out of there very quickly. It was nice.
It was. We had a carload of grandkids that night. We were home in about 40 minutes. You guys did nice work. Hey, Lise, 83, is that asphalt from the concrete up, or is it going to be, or parts of it going to be concrete for the truck traffic?
It's going to be concrete.
The whole thing? All
Yeah,
right.
all the work that we're doing,
Good.
every inch that we're reconstructing will be concrete.
All concrete, good deal.
And if you remember, we made the shift to concrete on the 83 and 4th project, so that
Yes.
entire corridor from 169 to the north will be concrete.
I remember that change, but okay, good, thanks. Okay, appreciate that update. Well, colleagues, and do we want to have a quick round robin, or are we done talking about stuff at 8:15, 8:17, whatever it is here?
Motion to adjourn.
If I may, because
Take any action tonight, so I can't accept your motion.
I just want people in general that might be hearing this to understand that we have hundreds of interactions a day as an organization with the county. And 99.9% of everything that we have and cooperate on work amazing. We have a strong partnership. But like all strong partnerships, including sometimes marriages, you don't always agree. And that might be a few little itty bitty pieces. And for those that are tuning in, that's what we're talking about. These are the itty bitty little things. There's so much more that we cooperate on and do. And two of what I call the crown jewels is our joint prosecution agreement and our fiber. The county led the effort on both of those. Those are just the most fabulous programs for every resident of Scott County. They're efficient, they save money, and they're just phenomenal. So, uh, from a staff perspective, we appreciate everything that the county does when it comes to staff work. And yes, we always don't agree, but 9 times out of 10, Leslie and I can talk, and those issues are rectified as well. I also want to give a shout out. We have Public Works. We do all this other stuff. But the other thing that a lot of people don't know, you know, we get all kinds of great information from your tax and assessment areas. They do a great job in assisting. When we have concerns, questions, and so I don't know if anybody's ever thanked them, frankly,
Tax man.
for their efforts, but I want to thank them. I want to thank the assessors, and I want to thank the county tax people as a whole because they've been absolutely tremendous to work with. So um, that's all I wanted to say.
Well, that's a good round robin
Will
to
you
have.
bring
Thank
up
you.
your embedded, you said you were gonna bring it up.
Let's talk about the future. Uh, Yeah, there are a couple of things that we've thought about from a staff perspective, for opportunities in the future. And one, obviously, we have opioid funds. We both do, and we obviously need to coordinate when we look at spending those funds. Um, you know, Frankly, I was asked by the League of Minnesota Cities, and they said, "Well, we're looking at this formula for opioid funds. We want your input on it." And I said, "Well, give it all to the county." I go, frankly, they're the ones that are dealing with 90% of it. Our one impact is from our police and fire when they deal with overdoses and issues like that. But from the reality, from my perspective, I mean, you guys are the ones that are holding the wall on those particular issues. We do think that it's incredibly important with our uh, 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 police services to have an embedded social workers, uh, you know, dedicated to the city of Shakopee and attacking those issues on the ground level. So hopefully, much like you're trying to do with the FRC, we would try to do that at the level of a police interactions. And I would love the opportunity to sit down and talk about that and see what we could work out to make that happen. I think that's critical as well. So, it's not just the past partnerships. Maybe that can be the next one in the crown jewel of of uh, 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 of the Shakopee and Scott County partnership.
Okay.
I would just like to say that we would like to have that conversation with you. So we are awaiting some money from the Department of Human Services, fingers crossed, for a crisis team and to hopefully look at a co-response, coordinated response, embedded social work model. So look forward to more conversations.
Thank you. And I think we've seen just real good examples in Dakota County where they have county employee social worker in each police station now, and they're getting some good statistics. And again, we want to be a leader, but we don't need to be the first leader because we can learn from them about what's working and what things. But it's so far, at least from our colleagues there, they've been very, very pleased with it and very excited about how that's going.
And Barb, was the model kind of look at Shakopee, Savage, and then the sheriff's office? I know there was kind of a.
Yeah, so we've been in conversations with, of course, Sheriff Hennon and also with Savage, and of course we'd love to with Shakopee as well. I think depending on the funding that we receive from the Department of Human Services, depending on, Pam Selvik is pulling together a work group that I believe is going to meet for the first time. I believe you're going to be there, Chief Tate, next Friday. that we're beginning to have some of those conversations on what that looks like in a little bit more detail. So some of it will depend on funding, some of it will depend on our model. And so, yeah, Dakota definitely has had, as has Washington County as well. They've done more of a, they started, I think, with a phased coordinated response. So instead of like deploying or dispatching the social worker like on a 24/7 model, it's more of a Monday through Friday, but still wanting to make sure that you're triaging the right resources and making sure that you are making those connections. So I think they're not necessarily seeing calls decrease, but what they're seeing is the right response and the right connection to resources, in a better way to kind of support law enforcement and get people the help they need a little bit sooner.
And does the meeting Friday have to do with the opioid funds?
Yes.
So this is when you approved that agreement from the opioid settlement. It called for, remember, a meeting, a public meeting with our partners and in the community. Pam has been, charged, right, as public health, the head of that, to organize that, and they're starting those meetings to discuss the use of that. And I know Sheriff Hennon and Chief Tate have both expressed an interest in this co-responder model, so.
Good. Good, okay. Anything else? Lightning round. My sparkle's pretty much gone. I need to just go home and put my head down on a soft pillow somewhere, but I don't know, has anybody else got any lightning left?
Well, I was just curious, what Sheriff, Sheriff Tate would,
Chief Tate.
Chief Tate, excuse me. I knew that was wrong. I would think of the THC gummies being distributed now, and that.
We got big conversations about that in the future.
Yeah, we do. Darn it.
You want to go there right now? I think, especially in Shakopee, with the uniqueness of all the entertainment venues that we have, I'm not a fan of the dispensary here in Shakopee. I think we get with the gambling that we see a lot of the folks that, whether they're drinking or they're lost their money or the, those types of calls. I just think this is just going to exacerbate that. I have talked to colleagues in other states that have these, and they get a lot of complaints from neighboring businesses because people just plop down right out in front of them. It's not a good business, inviting business environment. So I understand there's going to be a push to put something like that in a town, an entertainment town like this, especially with the amphitheater, and we're just going to keep bringing people in. And, you'll see at Summer Jam. I mean, people hopefully will have a ride share or a sober driver home. But I mean, this just compounds all of that, and they'll be able to bring it in anyway, if need be. But as an actual dispensary, I'm not in favor of that.
And this caught all of the city's platform. We are having a meeting next week specifically to discuss this issue. And I'll be honest, I really don't know what the heck, anything about it at this point. The League of Minnesota Cities is putting together some information, and the metro area managers and administrators are going to be discussing it. But it'll be our first take on it because this slid under the radar. Nobody, we've been thinking long term, obviously, about legalization of marijuana. Scale has done some great work in regards to getting people to think about that. But this was a total surprise.
There's a reason committees are supposed to do committee work. And when this slips in a conference committee in the middle of the night, this is what happens. And there's been a couple instances of that over the years, but this is unfortunate. So, anything else, guys? Jay?
I just want to take a minute to thank the county and staff. I think these conversations are great, bringing us together, talking about the issues, and coming to some sort of resolution. So thank you for putting this together.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to award Commissioner Wolf for the best listener tonight. He kept his comments very short, and you're a good listener, and thank you.
Counselor.
But yeah,
my hearing aid on.
all the years I don't think we've had a joint meeting, so kind of cool, kind of fun. I think it brought us all together. We might not have all agreed on everything tonight, but We're all partners.
Yeah.
We're all in the relationship business.
Yes, we are.
And we build relationships by talking. And that's what we're doing. Thank you, Mr. J.
I build them better when I'm eating and talking, but that's
I
just
think
me,
it's been,
so.
and Mr. Mayor, I think it's been almost 10 years since we had one of these, like this, like.
Really?
I have one right there.
Because I know John Schmidt was here.
7 years.
John Schmidt, right? So, were you here, Jane, for that? Of course you were there.
I really